What is up and welcome into the block. I have got my guys, Carl Reed, Blake Brockermeyer here ready to talk some college ball. Ready to start the week strong, but before we do, you at home, like the video, share the channel, subscribe to the channel, continue to get us out there as we build the block from the ground up. We have a lot of fun talking ball here on the show, but we have brand new top 247 player rankings in the class of 2023. And guess who is at the top? Well, none other than a very polarizing individual for no reason at all, in my opinion, A1 Arch Manning. Guys, we had a comment on this channel about 20 minutes out that simply said, no way Arch is still top 10. If so, your rankings are a joke. Well, as you can see on the graphic here, he just so happens to be number one. So I hope you're laughing at home. But at the same time, we got to take this very seriously because he's a darn good football player and a really good kid too. And all this unnecessary hate that's swirling around the Arch Manning name, I don't get it. So Carl, going to you first, is this justified or should everyone just calm down for now, especially as he's re-ranked the number one overall player?
Well, haters are going to hate. You know, and when you're a kid like Arch Manning, it's like I've said before, he's very similar and polarizing in the way that Bronny James is, being LeBron's son. He comes from that Manning name. And so people are never going to be happy. The only way that people are going to give this kid respect is if he leads Texas to the national championship twice, if he goes to the NFL and wins 3 Super Bowls, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And then people are still going to say, he only won a national championship, a Super Bowl, and in the Hall of Fame is because he's a Manning. And so what happens is guys are so critical of him. He didn't go to certain camps. He didn't participate in certain things. But when it comes to quarterbacking, I would have to adhere to what Archie Manning, Peyton Manning, and Eli Manning thought was the best way to develop a quarterback than the guy that's sitting at home behind his keyboard.
Yeah, I trust the guys that do the rankings for 24/7. I mean, Cooper and Carl have both been in college football for numerous years at some high-level programs, just part of the team that does the evaluation. So these guys know what it looks like. They know what top-tier quarterbacks are. And Arch, let's face it, is going to be one of the most scrutinized players to play college football ever because of his uncles and his grandfather. I mean, his family's royalty in college football. Love him or hate him, the kid's getting a lot of undeserved hate. And it's just the rankings, as fun as it is for us and for the fans to look at, I mean, at the end of the day, don't mean anything because Arch is going to have to prove it on the field. He's shown that he loves football. He's got some advantages that a lot of kids don't have with his family on being able to teach him things and understand things. I'm sure his football IQ is off the charts. But, you know, for every Trevor Lawrence and Bryce Young and Matthew Stafford, I mean, there's a Ryan Perrilloux and a Max Brown and a Dane Chris that, you know, doesn't work out for various reasons. So he's going to have a chance to have a great career at Texas. And kind of like what Carl said, no matter what he does, people are going to hate on him just because he's a Manning. But let the kid do his thing at Texas. He's going to have probably a really good career. And let's see where the chips fall in a few years. And then we can talk about whether he was a boom or bust or whatever.
And I'm going to tell you something else that you want to look at. There are tons of NFL players. There's tons of Hall of Famers who have sons and nephews that play high school football that aren't ranked, that aren't any good, that don't pan out as players. And so you still have to earn it on the field. There's some elite guys. I'm not going to name them. I don't want anybody to think I'm talking about their kids. But there are some very great NFL football players who have had sons that are not good football players. So to say Arch is only in that spot because of his DNA and his bloodline is unfair to Arch.
I mean, we're talking about a guy with a really rare frame, great arm talent. A lot of coaches who have hosted him on campus have drawn rave reviews. He's a great kid off the field. And I mean, at the end of the day, he doesn't even tweet. Like, where is all of this stuff coming from the fans? I don't know. I get frustrated, but I know personally I will be pulling for him as he leads the Texas Longhorns potentially into the SEC. And speaking of the SEC, gentlemen, we have started SEC Media Days as of today, and Conference Commissioner Greg Sankey took the podium to talk about conference realignment and what's going on. And he had this to say about the potential for the SEC to add even more teams.
We'll be prepared to act if there's a point at which we need to. I think what we've done is position ourselves as a conference in an incredibly strong way, and we want to magnify that strength. That really is about our move to 16. And if there are other needs, we'll see. But we're going to be prudent and careful. We're not going to panic because some other things are happening around us.
So, gentlemen,
we'll be prepared.
I know where I stand
act
on this,
if there's a point.
But I want to know where you are with all of these comments. Blake, going to you first. How do you perceive what Greg Sankey had to say?
I mean, the SEC doesn't need to do anything. I mean, they're the team that's winning the national championship almost every year. So they're in a great spot. They can pick and choose who they want. They calculated and picked Oklahoma and Texas to pick them out of the Big 12 because they're going to be two good programs to add to the already best conference in college football. So I think Sankey is going to do what he said. I mean, go back, wait, see how everything plays out with the national picture. Notre Dame is obviously the big piece to kind of keep an eye on. And I guarantee you, if Notre Dame wanted in the SEC, then then Sankey, I'm sure, would take them. So SEC is in a great spot. Greg Sankey's proven that he's a great leader, proven that he probably should be in charge of college football, in my opinion. I think he's done a great job just because he runs the best conference in the country. So we'll see how it all plays out, but they're not going to panic, like you said, and they're going to let the season play out. And it'll be interesting to see when Oklahoma and Texas actually do join the league, because that will make it even stronger.
Well, I think with the SEC, they are a proactive, not a reactive conference. And they don't have to make a move because the Big Ten made a move. Everybody is making their moves off of whatever the SEC decides to do. And so whatever he's going to do strategically for the league is probably already well thought out. If they're going to go after any teams, I'm sure that he already knows who those teams are and they have a plan. But it's still the SEC at the top of the college football world in terms of those kind of moves. And so I think that Greg Sankey is saying the right things and that he's trying to not make it about realignment today. But if there's a move to be made that makes sense for the league, I'm sure he'll make it.
And I think he likes it regional as well. I mean, there's not one person in the country that thinks USC and UCLA flying to Rutgers and Maryland and Penn State is a great idea. So I think just the regional aspect of the SEC and how the teams are located is a big draw as well. And I think that's something to keep an eye on, because it's very doubtful that the SEC goes out of that region unless it's a Notre Dame or somebody like that really moves the needle.
I think the regional aspect is important too, Blake, because football in the South is a lot different than football other places. We even have spring practice in the South at the high school level. And so when you think about that, every SEC state, except for the state of Missouri, I hope the Missouri State Association has listened to me. We need spring ball also. But every high school association in the state has spring football in the South. And so when you start adding teams that are outside of that region, you change things a little bit on a lot of levels.
I think that's a really good point across the board from both of you. The SEC is in an advantageous spot because of what the ACC is currently going through, and obviously the brand name that it is. We'll see what they're going to do. I think Greg Sankey is right with what he says, but I don't think he's telling 100% of the truth. So we will continue to stay tuned and see what else comes from SEC Media Days. Keep up with 247sports.com. A lot of our guys are on site providing up-to-date coverage. However, when we talk about Big 12 Media Days, which went down last week, I was out there with our guy, Chris Hummer, and he talked to one Marvin Mims at Oklahoma, who said to him he was going to transfer out of OU had Lincoln Riley stayed in Norman. Well, obviously change came to him. Riley's now at USC. Mims now intends to stay in Norman himself. But I want to know, Blake, was he justifiably upset in this scenario, or was it overdone a little bit on Mims' end? I'm interested to see how you gauge the situation.
I mean, I think a little bit of both. I mean, if you look at Mims's numbers last year, he only caught 32 balls for 705 yards, which is incredible when you look at the average, because that's about 22 yards per touch. So that's just not enough balls for a guy of his caliber. I mean, he's an electric player. That's a playmaker for Oklahoma. That needs to touch the ball more. I wrote an article earlier in the season on how it was almost like he was being used as a decoy. But I think you have to look at some of that as the struggles that Spencer Rattler had early in the season at Oklahoma, and then Caleb Williams coming in after him, not having a million reps to get ready, ran a little bit different style of offense for Oklahoma. So I think every kid thinks about transferring at some point in their college career. I know I did at Texas as a freshman. You see other players making plays and getting the ball. Every receiver in the country thinks they're open on every single play. So Mims is a great player. I think he did made a great decision by staying at Oklahoma. They're going to give him the ball. They've got a good offense to really make things happen for him. And I expect a huge season out of him this year, because he's a great player that deserves a few more touches, in my opinion.
Do you want to know why everybody started running no huddle offenses? They started running them because coaches were tired of the receivers coming to the huddle and telling the quarterback that they were open on the last play. If you call any guy right now that's played receiver at any level, he's going to answer the phone. He's not going to say hello. He's going to say, I'm open. If you look at the University of Oklahoma a year ago, Spencer Rattler started off rocky. You putting the freshman and Caleb Williams in the game. You're not running really the full scope of the offense. But he's the first receiver I've ever heard that had an issue with Lincoln Riley's offense. But I can say this, that if you didn't get the touches that you feel like you should get, the transfer portal is available now, and it's something that guys are going to think about as they think about their career. Mims is an awesome receiver. He's a high-level prospect who should command quite a bit of touches, and we'll see if he's happy this year with the situation.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to me to see all these people hating on Lincoln Riley the second he leaves. I mean, he had numerous coaches, numerous players that left and stayed. That the narrative has been they've upgraded with their coaching, they've upgraded, everything about the culture of the program. So it's always interesting to me to see that when coaches leave, what players say, publicly about their coach that's gone. So I think Lincoln Riley, on the field, did what he was supposed to do. He won the Big 12, the majority of the time that he was at Oklahoma, and did a good job. So it'll be interesting to see how he does at USC. I expect him to do a great job, bring that program back to life. And I think Brent Venables as well at Oklahoma is going to do a good job, just maybe in a different way than Lincoln Riley did.
Everybody doesn't like their coach. That's part of the game. Some of the greatest coaches across sports in the country have adversarial relationships with some of their former players. If you sit around and you ask those guys about it, being a coach can be very uncomfortable. A lot of times you're telling guys things they don't want to hear. A lot of times that you have to explain to a guy why he can't have his way. And when the guy leaves, everybody always says, I hate him and I'm glad that he's gone. But you got to continue to win at a high level, because the honeymoon only lasts as long up until the first loss.
Yeah, it feels like a continuous theme on this show as we reveal a lot of stuff behind the scenes in college football. It's not everyone's best friends, which makes me appreciate what we've got here on the show. But hey, next time I need the memo on the baby blue thing across the board, gentlemen. I'm a little upset about it. But we're going to go ahead and close the show, I'm pretty sure. So that's going to do it.
Whoa, wait a minute. Speaking of baby blue shirts, you made a big announcement, all right, and then you're gonna join the marriage club, right? And
yeah.
So can we get the tape up of Colin's proposal? Now, for all you young rookies out here that are proposing, I want you to pay attention to a couple things. first off, it looks like your fiance here, she smacked your ring off, but that wasn't the case. His knee is a little far over his toe. All right. So when you look at the knee, when you propose to your wife to be, you don't want to get that knee too far because you don't want to fall over. She has to lift him up there at the end because he's off balance. If she doesn't come in there and lift him up, he's going to fall over and it's going to absolutely kill the video. But thank God for her. She doesn't skip leg day. She got our guy up. She said yes, so he's not embarrassed. Colin, congratulations to you, man. Things are going to change for you. And your wife will start dressing you like my wife dresses me and Blake's wife dresses him. So I'm sure you'll have the baby blue shirt on next time.
All right.
Colin, the mistake you made too is you can't give her the opportunity to knock the ring out of your hand in the first place. You got to hold it down a little bit, or just in case she says no and tries to swipe it from you, then you can at least hold on to your ring.
No ball security there, no ring security at all. On
high and tight.
Didn't practice a lot, but he got through it and he got it done.
First of all, you saw me stumble there on the get up, so you're absolutely right. I fell off balance, but we recovered quickly. And then the rocks played a role, though, because as some fans were commenting, I had some coming off of my knees. I was so dug in there, it hurt. But my final comment on it is I don't know who got clearance to build that graphic. If it's our producer, Zach Bennett, or whoever else. I feel like Chris Belcher is up to it because he's got a vendetta against me and peanut butter crackers, but I've got some calls to HR to make. So while I do that, gentlemen, you at home need to like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel and here on the block. Follow these two on Twitter and head to 247sports.com for all things college football. Gentlemen, it's always fun.
Congratulations again, Colin.
Thanks, guys.